you grow the top line of your business. So that's what we're calling Selling Simplified. It's several tools put together in a very compressed way to give you some actionable strategies that you can walk away with today to implement in your business to grow the top line. For those of you that don't know ShiftCo, we do virtual training events, usually about 3 a month. And this is one of them. We have another one coming up on Wednesday, July 22nd, and that is going to be the Conscious Business Forecast. In that session, we're introducing a new business model that we have been researching for the last 8 years for a way to do business in a impact-driven way, in a way that also grows revenue and profit. And then on August 4th, we'll cover what we call value wins. So you're welcome to attend any of the events. They're our way of serving conscious entrepreneurs and helping you grow your good. If you don't know ShiftCo, we train business founders how to grow their business and maximize their impact. That's all we do. We love it. 91.5% of the members that join ShiftCo double their revenue, typically in 1 to 2 years. That is as of July or June 30th this past year. And those are businesses starting from zero all the way up to 5 million in revenue. And we have about a 98% monthly retention rate of our members. So that's us. My background and why I love doing what I'm doing, because I feel like I have the best job in the world. My grandfather was my first entrepreneurial mentor, and he had a juice bar in Sarasota, Florida. And he taught me this very powerful lesson. His juice bar was in an area called St. Armand's Key, and it's a very wealthy area. And one day, this guy came up on the Harley and rode his Harley up on the sidewalk and got out and walked into this nice juice bar dressed like a guy in a Harley. And all of the patrons were kind of like scared, as you can imagine. And my grandpa walked over to the man, and I heard him talk to the man. And the guy said, "Sir, there's a biker bar about 2 blocks from here that I used to go to, and I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I don't want to go back because I know that I'll drink. Do you have something that will help me?" And my grandpa brought him up to the front, took care of him, made him a special little glass of juice, and really looked after him. And I was really profoundly moved by that. But it was the second part of the conversation with my grandfather. He handed me a stack of $1 bills. And I grew up very poor, and so I was fascinated by this. And he said, "Honey, do you know what this is?" And I said, "No, Grandpa, it's just money." And he said, "No, honey, this is the tip that your customers give you when you serve them well, and that's what we call profit." And it really shaped my idea about what businesses are. Profit is the tip your customers give you when you serve them well. And I became very curious at a very young age for what it meant to earn a profit, but also that the definition of profit was a tip your customers give you when you serve them well. And that idea really shaped the way I think about entrepreneurship. So I'm blessed to run this beautiful portfolio of companies. Share on Purpose, which is kind of like a purposeful Shark Tank. Our 3 largest companies are Succeed on Purpose, Ignite on Purpose, and ShiftCo. And then we also invest in companies like Your Izzy, which is the first zero waste makeup and skincare line. And I operate everything from this idea that profit is the tip your customers give you when you serve them well. So what that means is I'm incredibly dedicated to the work that I'm doing. I'm very passionate about it. I eat, drink, and sleep the growing of businesses and the growing of impact. And that is how I choose to profit. When I ask entrepreneurs how they think about growing a business and what's hard, they almost always say selling. So if we were in a workshop and I said, "Okay, what's the hardest thing?" And I would write it up on the flip chart. Number one thing is almost always selling or marketing. And everyone, "Oh yeah, that's the hardest." But I want to challenge you why selling seems hard isn't because of the act of selling. The challenge is that you need to have more people aware that you exist and more people that are interested in buying. And I'm going to give you some statistics in a minute to show you what I mean by that. Selling itself is not hard, as you're going to see. There's just a couple of techniques that make it very authentic, that make it conversational. The challenge is the majority of businesses don't have enough people that are aware their business exists and are not necessarily interested in buying. And when you have 3 times more potential buyers aware that you exist and 1 to 2 times more interested in buying, you're not going to have a hard time selling. And that's what I'm hoping to show you today is it really isn't a sales problem. It's really an awareness problem. So the 4 areas that we're going to cover today for this idea of authentic selling is one is I believe there's actually 2 sales. And the first sale is the one that actually matters the most. And it's not the transaction part of it. The second is it's not a sales problem, it's an awareness problem. What do I mean by that? Third is the idea to stop trying to sell and learn how to connect. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. And then the fourth is having conversations that convert. So that's what we're going to cover. And as I jump in, the first thing is when you think about marketing and selling, you hear words like click funnels, lead magnets, sales funnels. And what I can tell you as a person who's got close to 4 decades in sales and marketing under my belt, I'm older than I look. Marketing and sales funnels don't work the way that they used to. It used to be in the old days, my gray hair days, I would run television ads and I would be able to tell based on the phone volume whether or not ABC was better to advertise or CBS or NBC. Again, old days. Today it looks much different. And I could tell statistically based on the impressions, which is known as awareness, where they were aware that our company existed, based on the interest, which were the people that called us, based on the people that asked for a price, and then based on the people that actually purchased. And this is a very common formula. It's considered a sales funnel. There's different versions of it. It's known as AIDA, Awareness, Interest, Desire, Act. But all of them, regardless of what names they give them, typically are shaped like a funnel. And they have this very disingenuous intention, and that is to get someone to buy. So all marketing and sales, quote unquote, funnels, their intention is to get someone to buy. And that is the reason why it doesn't work as well. In fact, most of the common research today is saying that the cost to acquire a customer is 3 to 4 times higher than it was 2 years ago. And I believe it's not just because of AI and new marketing mechanisms. I believe because marketing and sales is so incredibly inauthentic and it's designed to get someone to buy. The second reason why it doesn't work as well is because you need 3 times more awareness today than you did 2 years ago. There's a lot of noise out there. And most of the time, entrepreneurs are trying to sell. They're not really building a strategy to generate awareness. And you need 3 times more awareness, significantly more awareness. And I'll give you the statistics of that. And so it's not just a sales problem, it's really an awareness problem. And then secondly, most of the time it's inauthentic. So about 12 years ago, I started thinking about my whole career has been built on building sales funnels, marketing funnels for people, again, for close to 4 decades. And about 12 years ago, I started realizing that it didn't feel good to me and I wanted to find a different way to do it. And so I started over, is the only way to describe it, with this idea, how could it be more authentic? And the first thing that I did is I changed the way I thought about it. Rather than thinking about it as a funnel, I thought about it as a series of steps to build relationships. Today, we call that the 4 Fs: friend, follower, fan, and fanatic. A friend is somebody that's aware. So you are aware of Shifco. Somebody told you about this event. You saw it on Eventbrite. You were in our database. You're aware that we exist. You signed up for this webinar and you attended, which means you're interested. That does not mean that you're interested in buying from us, nor will I try to sell to you. It just means that you're aware and you're interested in this particular topic. So that would be what I would call a follower. So awareness and interest are the first sale. And this is also known as marketing. The challenge is the vast majority of time, entrepreneurs don't build enough awareness in, and therefore they didn't get enough interest. For example, we had 60 some people sign up for this webinar and we have 14 here today. That's not unusual. That just means that 60 people were aware and sort of kind of interested, but 14 of us were really interested. So that's an example of what I mean by it. But I need the 60 plus to be aware in order to have 14 to be here. Desire and act is the selling part. And that's where you're cultivating interest in serving people until they are ready to buy. That's my mantra. I never sell. Anybody that knows me knows that you will never feel sold to. But what I will do is I will serve you until you buy or you refer. Or you opt out. Like it's like that. Like I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to beg you, but I'm going to continue to give you valuable information. And at some point, you're either going to refer somebody to me or eventually purchase. And I'm not attached to that. So that second sale, if you're attached in the second sale, then the whole thing becomes inauthentic. So I'm never attached. But the most important piece to understand is I don't master the second sale. I actually master the first sale. So I'm teaching this to Shifco members, we have a whole 3 pathways on just teaching them how to master the first sale. How do you get 3 to 10 times more awareness? One pathway is 10xing, the other 2 are 3xing. How do you 3x your awareness? And then from that awareness, how do you connect with people in a way that causes them to be interested in learning more about you? If you win that first sale, what I call friends who follow or awareness and interest, you will have a full pipeline of sales opportunities for the second sale. But if you don't win the first sale, then you'll constantly be scrambling around trying to get people to buy. A, it doesn't work. B, it feels horrible. And I think one of the reasons why most people quit entrepreneurships and give up on it is because they don't like the sales part. So what I'm going to show you how to do with this next section is win the awareness game. And let me show you what the statistics for that are. If you win the awareness game and you get better at interest, you will have friends who follow. If you have a large group of those, we have, I don't know, 6,000, 7,000 people in our database over the last couple of years that are aware and interested. And we're not heavy marketing to them. We're just telling them about the next event, sharing with them a report, giving them a new tip. And that awareness and interest part, because I'm very, very good at that, and Shifco is very good at that, it makes it easy to sell. Okay. So let's now talk about statistics. Remember, I'll take questions at the end. When you're building a new business demand generation strategy, if you look at those 3 components, expanding the awareness, interest, which gets you, by the way, more leads and better sales conversion. Those are the 3 components when you're building new business. If you measure statistically, which obviously I'm a big proponent of that, if you're a business to business brand, which means you're selling to another business, you need 10 to 100 clicks or connects. So just think about that, depending on your industry, in order for 2 to 5 people to be interested, not to buy, in order for 1 to 2 to buy. So just think about your own business. If you wanted 1 to 2 new customers a month or a quarter, you need 10 to 100 new people to be aware. And look at that drop off between awareness and interest. It's huge. So for the 4,000 people that have been in our database in the last 2 years, I think last 2 years, we added a lot. We probably sent 100,000 people to the website. So that's an example of what I mean. You need a lot more awareness than what you think. And I'm giving you big numbers just so you can understand the order of magnitude, but run the numbers for yourself. If you want 1 to 2 new sales per month or per quarter, then you can just basically calculate how many leads you're going to need, which are people that are interested in buying from you and learning more about what you do. But that awareness is the daunting part. That's the part that causes people to go, oh gosh, how am I going to do that? Now, one thing I'll recommend is if you want more assistance with awareness, obviously, if you're a member, you'll be getting this. But if you want more assistance, let us know, like respond to my email, and I'll give you a couple of free trainings on just awareness to help you double down on that. every member that is in Shiftco gets extensive training on how to expand awareness, but I've got some great free training that I can give you if you need help with that. Just send me an email when the recording, or send anybody on our team when the recording comes out, and let us know you want that information, and we'll share that, because that's really the key. If you sell to consumers, so like your Izzy is a B2C, this is a zero waste makeup and skincare line. You need 100 to 1,000 clicks or exposures. So we need 100 to 1,000 people to click on the Your Izzy website to get 10 to 20 people to put it in a cart, which demonstrates interested, to get 1 to 2 new sales. So on the B2C side, which is why B2C is much harder than B2B, you need way more awareness, kind of 10x your awareness. And then you also have to have a way to manage the people that are in the cart that don't convert right away. And if you think about yourself, I mean, if you go on Amazon, or depending on where you shop on e-commerce, you drop stuff in the cart, you don't always buy it. Same thing. That's basically the statistics today. And that is why marketing has become so expensive and so ineffective. And then you can also identify for your own business, looking at these statistics, which of these areas do you need improvement on? It's almost always not conversion. It's usually awareness and interest, which is obviously what we're going to talk about next. So as it comes to awareness and interest, a lot of people talk about something called FOMO, fear of missing out. And a lot of marketers use FOMO, and they use click funnels and lead magnets as this way of generating interest. What I can tell you statistically, as a person that has 4 decades of marketing, 2 very successful marketing companies today, plus one that I exited in early 2008. When and why buyers make a purchase really does matter, and ClickFunnels and lead magnets don't solve for that. And you really have to stop and think about it from a buyer's perspective. First of all, you have to say, who am I serving? Too often, you have too small of a niche. And if you ever need help with that, just let me know and I can talk you through that. People that teach niching teach it to the wrong people. You don't want to niche your business down if the business is under 30,000 a month, which only 8% of the businesses in the United States are that large, 30K a month. If you niche before your 30K a month, you can actually close off your revenue stream. So be careful with that. Second is you have to know where they are. You can't just build it and they will come. So for example, I know that our ideal buyer, our target market, I know the Facebook groups that people are in, I know the LinkedIn groups, and I know where they are in Eventbrite. And so where do I put information? There's places I put it in LinkedIn groups, places our team puts it in Facebook groups, and then we also promote it on Eventbrite. I know that my ideal buyer is in those 3 locations. And because I know that, I serve up information to them, but I do it where they are. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see founders make, is kind of like, oh, wow, here's my webinar. I just post it randomly on LinkedIn or Facebook and expect everybody to sign up. It doesn't work. You have to go to them. And you also have to remember they're being bombarded with a lot of information. So what you're sending them can't just be pitchy. It's got to be interesting. And that going to where your buyer is one of the biggest adjustments that I see people need to make. The next thing to think about is, how often do you need to go to where they are? It can't be a one and done. It's got to be something that has a system to it. So for example, why do we do several webinars a month? Well, if you miss this one, maybe you'll listen to the recording. And if you don't listen to the recording, maybe you'll attend the one that we're having in 2 weeks. And so I know that the rhythm for us is 2 to 3 events per month works for our particular demographic. And again, I don't expect everyone to attend. I don't expect everyone to listen. But what I know is that if I continue to serve you and I keep offering you valuable content, at some point you're going to become interested in Shiftco. And so we build that machine. The other thing to think about here is when you have a sales gap, and I think every business that I talk to, this is their number one thing. Oh, I got to have this sales gap or a revenue gap. And I'm like, no, you don't have a sales gap. What you have is you don't have enough potential buyers that know that you exist. And I cannot emphasize that enough. The awareness gap is really the issue. It's not sales. When people are aware and they become interested, you will not have a problem selling. Now let's talk about interest. So we talked a little bit about when. Now let's talk about why. Why does somebody make a purchase? It's not because they're giving you a special buy today. Occasionally, that's the, Amazon deal days. But it's really not that. Even on Amazon deal days, which I like to use since we just had one recently, and you can see the Amazon trucks were everywhere that week. I didn't buy it because it was on sale. I bought it because I needed it. I was ready to solve it, and there was some kind of value, and that's where the deal days come in. And this idea, particularly if you're in the services business, that your buyer is ready to solve a problem, I cannot emphasize that enough. I'm going to show you how to message to that. When the buyer is ready, they will buy. Examples of that, we have this machine set up. We do this all the time. And somebody will be, they'll attend a couple events and we won't see them for 6 months or 12 months. And then out of the blue, they'll just purchase. Now, nothing changed. What changed was they decided they were ready. So you also have to have a way to keep track of the people that are aware and interested. It can be a simple spreadsheet. I've got a simple template. It doesn't have to be a Salesforce or a HubSpot. It can be a simple spreadsheet. It can be Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, but you have to have a way to keep in touch with those people and to know they're there so that they don't forget about you. Because one of the worst things that can happen is you spend time talking to somebody and then you don't stay in contact with them. And then 6 months later, they buy from somebody else. The main point here is they don't buy when you're ready for them to buy. They buy when they are ready to solve their problem. And it's always like that. It's in every single industry, in all of the companies that I consult with and the folks that I coach in ShiftCo, it's always this. Your job is to implement a simple selling system, which is what we're talking about today. So you stay in contact with them and you're speaking about the problems that they solve. Okay, so the when part has to do with the awareness and interest happens. That's the machine, it's constantly running. But when they go from interest to desire, it is not because of you, it is because of them. Something changed in their life. Something happened where it was like, maybe their business went down a little bit, or maybe there's a sense of urgency around a time, but it's not because of you. There's no perfect message that you can put. There's no perfect discount. It's almost always like 99% of the time because of what's happening with them. This chart that I'm about to show you is what I call a money chart. A money chart is a big aha. A money chart is like, oh my God, that explains how this works. And that is when buyers make a purchase. So remember the friend, follower, fan, fanatic, that's at the top. Okay. So remember these pictures here. Now I just put them in these little orange boxes. When a buyer is first becoming aware of you, in the very beginning, it could be at a networking event, it could be a conversation, it could be an introduction, it could be a post that you make on LinkedIn, it could be, an event promotion like what you saw here. Their focus is not you. So if you talk about you, they're not listening. They're just not. They're tuning you out. That's why I don't give you a whole lot of ShiftCo information at the beginning. I just tell you a nice little story about me and why I do it. I tell you a data point about ShiftCo, and then I get right to why you're here, which is you were interested because you want to solve your sales problem. So every time a buyer becomes aware of you, it could be, again, at a networking event, they hear you speak, a post, an event like this. They are not thinking about you and why you're great. They are thinking about their problem. And they're tuned in to the radio station of their problem. They're not tuned in to you. So one of the first things you have to learn how to do to get interest to go up, so the awareness converts to interest, is you've got to learn how to speak about their problems. And I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. I'm going to actually have you jot, a couple of examples of what that looks like. And you have maybe 15 seconds when you're first getting started to communicate to them that you get their problem. And it's why when I first talk about the event, I talk about what problem we're going to solve in the event. And then I tell you a little bit about Shifco, and then I get right back to the problem. You have like 5 to 15 seconds today, because people have ADD, to talk about their problem. And if you're talking about yourself, so for example, if I introduce myself, I'm Terri, I've got 4 decades, I took a company public on NASDAQ Stock Exchange. I've, helped turn around or sell 50 different companies. You would be like, la, 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 not interested. But instead, I get right into, if selling is something you're interested in and you want to learn more how to do it, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about these 3 components. I get right into that, because now you start to pay attention. Now you become interested. That purple line represents your focus, of how focused you are on the problem. Once somebody knows that you can solve the problem, their focus shifts. Now we're going to look at the orange line. Now they're tuned in, they're paying attention. They begin to see you as a solution to their problem. And that's what I call winning the first sale. So their obsession with the problem goes away, because the human mind can only focus on one thing at a time. And their attention towards what solution you're talking about goes up. That is the first sale. If you win the first sale, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. If you win the first sale, buyers are 2 to 4 times more likely to buy from you if you win the first sale, which means they became aware that you understood their problem and that you might have a solution. They explored enough about your solution. They began to see you as a solution to the problem. Now they're actually paying attention. How do you know if someone is interested? They sign up for a webinar. They ask for a meeting. They give you a card and say, hey, reach out to me. They call you on the phone. They send you an email. They click on something if they're in your database. There's all sorts of ways, but you're looking for ways that somebody is showing interest, not so you can sell to them, but so that you can serve to them. It does not mean they are ready to buy. And I cannot impress that enough. This is the first sale right here. This is the second sale. When they become ready to buy is over here. The first sale, they're not ready to buy, although sometimes they will buy quickly. They're not ready to buy. What they are is aware and interested. And that is the key. If you get better at awareness and interest, it will be way easier to sell. Couple of things about that. How do you do that? Number one, you have to understand buyers are always looking for solutions to their problems, always, to a fault. Maybe this will work. Maybe this will work. Maybe this will work. I don't care what you're selling. Maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try this, to a fault. They are always looking for solutions to their problems, but they don't always know their problem. Sometimes they're just searching, especially on Facebook, less so on LinkedIn, but on Facebook, there's kind of like random scrolling, and they click on this and click on this and click on this. And since I have 2 very successful marketing companies, we look at a lot of data. You can see it. They don't always know what their problem is. And the reason why I like to point that out is if you can help clarify to them what their problem is. So I want to go back to one of the slides I put in front of you guys very early in today's session. And I talked about this idea, what's the hardest part of building a business? And everybody says selling. I'm like, it's not really selling, it's this. What I did, this is an example. What I did was I showed you what your real problem is. It's not that you have a sales problem. Your real problem is that you don't have enough awareness. And that little tweak, if you can help clarify very early on what their problem is, like give them real clarity for that, so that they really kind of pay attention, and you can almost see, kind of like squirrels, their heads kind of pop up like, oh, wait a minute, you had me at hello. If you can do that very early in the conversation, or very early in a presentation like this, or very early in your post that you're making, that will get you much better results. Is you help them clarify their problem. I know you think your problem is sales. It's really not. The real problem is you don't have enough people aware that you exist. All I have to do is post that as an example. So that's what we mean by that. The second thing, it doesn't mean they're ready to solve it. And the reason why I cannot emphasize this enough is, I'm a huge introvert, so I don't go to a lot of networking events, but when I go, I cannot stand when people, shove their cards at me. It's offensive to me because I'm not ready to buy. I don't even know you. I don't even know what you do. I don't even know if I need what you do. So you have to be very careful. You can't like try to force people to buy. What you've got to do is you have to serve them so they want to buy. And that's what we call desire. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. It also doesn't mean that they're looking for your company. And this is the biggest mistake people make on their website and in their marketing is they talk so much about why they're great and they talk so much about themselves that the buyer gets lost in it and they just tune you out. Again, because I have two successful marketing companies, I look at a lot of website conversion data and you'll see what's known as a high bounce rate. A high bounce rate is people hit the website and they bounce right off. People hit the website and they bounce right off. Why? Because your website is talking about you and it's not talking about them. Same thing at a networking event. If you go to a networking event and you talk to 10 people and nobody asks you for your card, more than likely you are talking about yourself and you're not engaging them in a way that's effective. All right. So how do you do that? How do you engage people in a way that's effective so they become interested? So this is what we call ditch the pitch. We have a whole training on this on our YouTube site. Again, if you want this, let us know. We'll send it to you. Most of the time people were trained to do elevator pitches. They're very inauthentic and they don't work anymore. And so what we teach you how to do is to introduce yourself in a different way. And when this full thing is up on the screen, I want you to take a picture of it and I want you to start using it in wherever you're networking and whatever you're posting. But it would look something like this. Oh, I love what I do. Pause. That alone is going to make you stand out. Or, oh, I've got the best job in the world. Something along those lines where people feel your passion. And it can't be fake. It can't be like a script. It's got to be genuine. Oh, I have the best job in the world. I love what I do. Pause. What that does is it causes them to go, oh, I wonder what you love what you do. I wonder what that is. And it gets them paying attention. And then the way that we teach people how to introduce themselves is to speak about the value you provide and the problem that you solve, not what you do. So I don't introduce myself as I'm CEO of this and I've got multiple companies and blah, blah, blah. When I'm introducing myself, I say something very simple like I show founders how to grow their business and triple their impact. And the structure of this matters. So who you serve, like if I'm in a mixed networking event and half of the room is not their employees and the other half is founders, the employees are going to tune out as soon as I say that. So I show founders, emphasis on who I serve, how to grow their business and triple their impact. The grow their business is what I do that solves their problem. It's not about me. I don't give all the, crazy stats when I introduce myself. It's just basically I show founders, take a breath, how to grow their business, emphasis on the word grow, and triple their impact. That second part of the sentence is the why it matters. And the reason for that is I don't want just people that want to grow their business. I love to serve people who want to grow their business and make a bigger impact. They're doing something that matters. They're doing something that matters to them. It's purposeful. It's meaningful. They want to serve more people. They don't just want to make money. They really want to do good in the world. So I know that that is my truth, right? So this sentence is not a script. This is in every cell in my body. I don't need to have it written down somewhere. It just rolls off my tongue. I show founders how to grow their business and triple or maximize their impact. And I say it different ways each time, not because it's a script, but because it's in my DNA. So again, feel free to snap a picture to this. This is if you're networking, if you're introducing yourself on a podcast, if you're introducing yourself where you're speaking, if you're doing webinars, when you're posting on social media, this is how to construct that. Not the yada, 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 all the stuff you did, blah, 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 long posts and that type of stuff. It doesn't work. It's got to be about them. You instantly speak to who you serve. I show founders. Then you talk not about what you do, but about what you do that solves their problem. My target market wants to grow their business. They're not dilly-dallying around. And so I get right to that. I show founders, breath, how to grow their business. And I just let people feel my passion for doing that and triple or maximize their impact. That's the formula so that you have more interest from the awareness. How I figured this out, when I first became an entrepreneur in 2002, long time ago, I was struggling like every other founder out there, was failing miserably, was thinking about going back and getting a job. And long story short, I was working with a coach about a year and a half into this. So it's now 2003, and I'd failed for 18 months, was running out of money. And I started working with a coach, and I was trying to decide, should I go back and get a job? And she said, let me ask you something, Terri. I want you to interview 10 founders and find out why they're successful. And I did that. And what I found is the only thing that caused them to be successful was they didn't quit. No lie. All 10 of them. They had some different story. Some of them had degrees. Some of them didn't have degrees. Some of them had money. Some of them didn't. The only common denominator was they didn't quit. And I was fascinated by that. And I'm like, well, let me interview another 10. By the time I got to 100 different founders, I had found all 100 of them, the only common denominator was they didn't quit. So I decided I'm not quitting. And then I said that I've got to do something different because what I'm doing isn't working. So I started testing, and I started going to these different networking events. So this is 2003. Chambers were really big. I was going to the Dallas Chamber and South Lake Chamber and blah, blah, blah. And I started playing around with how I talked about what I did. And I noticed that when I changed what I talked about to being about them, they were interested. Their heads would look up, you're like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. When I talked about, oh, I was president of an internet company, we did a NASDAQ stock exchange, and now I'm doing consulting and blah, blah, blah. They were like, looking around, not paying attention. But when I talked about them and what I did to serve them, they paid attention. And then if I took it one step further and I talked about why it mattered, like I was born to do this work or something along those lines that I used to say back then, they would ask me for my card. And I started noticing for every 10 people I talked to, 3 to 5 people would ask me for the card by simply changing the way I talked to them. And so that's going to be one of your, what we call change works in ShiftCo, is to play around with this. Don't take my word for it. Play around with a couple of versions of it. Go to some networking events, make some posts on social media, and see what people respond to. That's going to be how you test this. Okay. The last piece that we'll talk about, and then I'll take questions, is conversations that convert. This is probably for the second sale. By the way, this is now second sale activity. One of the most effective things I've ever learned is I never, ever sell to anybody, ever. But people buy from me, right? And I hear people joke about this all the time. Oh, you bought from Terri too. She doesn't sell, but boy, I bought from her, right? Here's why. Is I structure the conversation when we're doing a discovery call. I structure the conversation in such a way so you realize that I might have the solution to your problem. And here's how you do that. It looks like this. So if you go back to the friend, follower, fan, fanatic, what's happening in the second sale? So the first sale we talked about a minute ago is that's the whole awareness, right? And interest. That's the first sale. I'm not talking about that now. I'm talking about the second sale. So that person has asked you for their card, and they want to talk to you again. They've reached out on LinkedIn and they want to have a conversation. So they see something, right? As they get close to, now I want to buy, right? So now I'm curious. And now they start asking about price. And the closer they get, the green line represents price, to really wanting to buy, the more concerned they get about price. But what I found is it's not price. What it is, it's not price. What it is risk. What's happening to them is they are in a state of risk. They're afraid, well, what if this doesn't work? What if I'm the only one this doesn't work with? So as they're evaluating your product, they're looking at your website, they're reading your one sheet flyer, whatever that is, you're thinking, well, why haven't they bought? Maybe I should give them a promotion. What you're not realizing is they are in risk. And if you hard sell them when they're in risk, they're likely to not trust you. But if you double down on the trustworthiness and the authenticity, which I'm going to show you how to do, their risk comes down. And if the risk comes down, they want to buy. So this point, I cannot emphasize this enough. Remember, this is second sale, not the first sale. We've gone from the first sale. Now we're talking about the second sale. These conversations that convert lower risk. So here's how that goes. And the idea is, and we're running out of time, but if you think about the last purchase you made, you were feeling risk. What caused you to make the decision? You can see for yourself what I'm talking about here, right? Okay, so I call this the PSV conversational model. It's a way to have a conversation that is authentic, that when they're demonstrating that they're aware and interested, first sale, and now they've want to have a conversation with you, you do not want to talk about you. You first want to talk about them. So, hey, Jeff, what made you want to reach out to me? Where are you stuck in your business? What's going on? You move into this very consultative role, not the 50 reasons why you should buy from me, not why I'm great, not my history, not my title, not the boards that I'm on, none of that. None of that matters. It's about them and your whole attention. And by the way, I feel so strongly about this that I actually have this chart. You'll see all three pieces here printed out. And every time I'm having a conversation with a potential lead, this is sitting in front of me so I don't forget. Because like everybody else, I get full of myself and I start talking about why I'm great. And then people go, la, 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 they're not listening. So the first question, hey, thanks for meeting with me. Again, I have this sitting to remind myself, what's going on with you? What made you reach out? Where are you stuck? And then the piece that's really important is you're treating this as a conversation with a friend and your goal is to serve them. You're not trying to sell to them. What you're doing is you're restating what they said. Well, if I heard you correctly, so there's this restate that occurs. If I heard you correctly, this is what's going on with you, or this is important to you. Is that right? And that restating does two things. One is it makes sure that you're clear. And then the second thing is it lets them know that they've been heard. And the biggest problem in our society right now is people are running around talking, but nobody's listening and they're not hearing each other. So you distinguish yourself by just simply listening to them and really hearing what they're saying. And then rather than jumping after, you're stuck on this. Okay, great. Restate. And then boom, I try to sell you. You don't do that. You go, all right, well, what have you already tried? What is the kind of solution that you're looking for? What this does, so P stands for problem, S stands for solution. What this does is it lets them know you're not going to force them to buy. You didn't go for the gotcha now, I'm going to reel you in, right? You don't do that. You simply have this conversation. Well, what have you tried? Genuinely concerned. And again, I'm not saying fake this. I mean, it's genuine. My heart is pure when I do this. What have you tried? What is the type of solution that you think will work for you? And then rather than telling you the 50 ways, I usually tell a story of somebody I helped, and I call it a SAR story or a value story. Here's the situation. Here's what we did. Here's the result that we got. And I don't need to go into a lot of detail. By the nature of having this very pure, authentic conversation, the buyer recognizes I'm genuine, that I mean what I say, and that I'm authentic, and I'm not asking them to buy. What do you think they do? Well, Terri, how do I get started? Or, how does this work? That authenticity causes the risk to come down. It's not manipulative, it's lowering risk genuinely because I care. And that value equation starts to become high. Now they want to buy, and that's what causes them to convert. So that's how it works. I'm going to answer your questions in just a minute, but if you want to sample this, let us know, and I'll send you what we call Inside Shiftco, and it's kind of like a sneak peek into what it's like to work with us. If you want a free coaching session, Lisa will drop my calendar in. I offer free coaching sessions, no strings attached, because I genuinely want to support your growth, and I'll find out what's going on with you, and I'll give you some free ninja tools. And then also you can continue to attend as many free events as you want. We have phenomenal events, and we offer 2 to 3 of them a month. So that's the way that we support you. Again, 2 events that are coming up is a very powerful session on July 22nd. We're going to be introducing a new business model that is very powerful. And I believe it is going to be transformative for the next 5 to 10 years. And then on August 1st, we're offering value wins. So I'm going to close out the recording and take a few questions.